Hey guys, and welcome to the TCC podcast, where we discuss everything coffee.
Hey guys, Stefan here.
As well as Christian.
And Mr. Know-it-all, noisy. No, I'm joking. Just Theo.
You said it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
welcome to today's conversation on the TCC podcast. And boy, do we have a contradicting, unorthodox conversation for today. And
This topic is going to be fun.
Yes, so
It's interesting.
we're going to have a very interesting conversation. So today we are talking about ratios. And
Coffee ratios, to be more exact.
yeah, so we're talking about coffee ratios, and if you don't exactly understand what that means, it is the ratio of ground coffee to water. And if you're going to be really pedantic and bring in milk beverages as well, then the ratio of coffee to milk. But that's obviously
For
getting
today,
into it.
just
Yes.
coffee and water, because I feel that if there was a better standard to this when
Yes.
I got into coffee, I wouldn't have been confused for the first 5 years.
Yes. But now,
Well, yeah,
the
definitely.
the poetic justice of today's episode, it comes in when we take into account the coffee that we're having for today.
Yes,
So-
it just so worked out.
Yes. So Theo, give me that packet.
These
that
Oh,
two
you want to
guys-
run the coffee?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
These two.
You want to tell the story because you were there when I brewed it.
These two
Yes.
loud mouths next to me. We're speaking about ratios today, so they poured a V60 on the coffee that's Christian is going to speak about,
Yes.
but they don't know the ratio.
Yes. So, but when
Well,
they
I'm
explain,
guessing it's a 1 to 12.
Yeah, we're gonna-
guessing.
we're gonna we essentially brewed a Bosveld V60.
There
and
we
if you're
go,
and
there
obviously
we go.
if you're Afrikaans enough to understand what Bosveld is, well, I'll tell you the story of where we kind of learned that term from.
Yes.
It's from a roaster friend of ours. But no, so the coffee that we're having today is from Humble Coffee. It is peaberry from Kenya, from the Kerichho region. Although they don't tell us which varieties they use for this.
That would be a SL28 and SL
34,
34.
which is about 80% of specialty coffee which comes from Kenya. I recently
Right.
learned when I had to analyze a coffee blind.
Now, if it was French mission, it would have been a lot more blunt. If it had R11 in, the acidity would have been a lot less.
Yes.
So that's why I would be like, no, this is definitely those two, because you can taste it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it is a fully washed process that was then dried in the sun on raised beds. So it's our what Kenya is known for, that double washed
Kenyan
style
wash.
washing method, grown between 1,500 and 2,100 meters above sea level.
Okay. Interesting. So,
Now,
so
if you guys don't know what the whole fully washed or raised beds or any of that
and all
meant,
those SLs and Rs and
yes,
all
just
numbers
go
and
and
everything.
listen to our previous episode. Episode 2 or 3 was varieties.
Episode 3 would be varieties.
Yes.
3 would be varieties, and I think 5 or 6 is going to be processes. I just was like, what was that word again?
Processes.
Processes. So if you're wondering what it is, just go and listen to the rest of the episode, and you will be all caught up.
Yes.
Then come back to this episode.
Yeah.
Now-
then you'll understand what we're saying.
Yes.
I hope.
Yes. Now, let's jump into ratios.
Yes, topic.
Which is obviously a very interesting thing to discuss, because when we go to many baristas, they will tell us, so if you ask them, listen, what coffee are you serving? And they actually more or less know what it is. They'll tell you, we're using a blend from this commercial roasting company. They have, for example, in Ethiopian Sudamu, Tanzania AA, and Brazil Santos.
Right.
And they're using a 1-to-2 ratio. I said, okay, cool. Will you show me how you pull the shot? And then they pull the shot. Don't weigh the portafilter. Doesn't weigh the shot. And then they tell me it's a 1-to-2 ratio.
Yes,
Like,
I love it when they go, this is a 1-to-2 ratio.
like, oh, very interesting. I have a scale on the car. Do you mind if I actually weigh like what happened? And then immediately you kind of see, like, my goodness, wait, you use a scale?
Yes, like,
It's like,
what's that?
Okay,
I've never seen this
how
before.
did you then determine ratio?
Yes.
So obviously very interesting, and that's how we got into trouble with today's coffee. Is while we were busy brewing, we had not charged our scales, and it went off mid brew. So we
both
then
the scales.
both
The
scales.
scales.
So secret to a good coffee: prepare.
That's true. That's true.
Yes, that is
It- it-
brother.
it-
So
preparation.
we by the tip of our tongue and the smell of our nose, we kind of determined that this would be close to a 1-to-12 ratio.
Yes, so I was kind of going because I knew, I actually know the coffee, and so I have brewed this coffee probably about 15 different times and 5 or 6 different flavors, ratios before, in different methods, and so I was like, well, through the V60, it should be a fairly balanced sweetness, so about a 6 out of 10 sweetness. It should have that nice 7 to 8 spunky acidity with that almost a dryish type of bitterness going down the throat. So this winey, like a very dry
Yes.
wine lingering sensation.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just topped the water through the V60 until I tasted that, knowing I'd be close. But to be very frank and very honest, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we have no idea. We actually have no idea what happened to this cup, but we can tell you it is a nice, pleasant cup. The
And-
only problem is we're not going to be able to do it again
I
consistently.
can never do this one again.
For me, it's delicious. So I like it.
And that's why we have Stefan available.
And the pedantic in me died when that scale died. And you know what the worst? You know what the worst thing about that whole thing was? It was my scale that died. So
Mr.
Mr.
Pedantic.
Pedantic
yeah,
lost
Mr.
his
Pedantic
scale.
lost his scale. But
That's
no.
good. Right. So on ratios, while we're busy with the topic.
Well, yeah, we are on the topic.
Kind of.
So interesting enough, when I did research on this topic, ratios is not a big thing. There's not a lot of info around. There's just general ratios. So
There's
like
general knowledge, yes.
so like around the normal brewing methods, they say it's a golden ratio by SCA, America, I think.
Yeah, SCA
Yes.
would be Specialty Coffee Association.
From America.
Association, sheesh, tongue twister, of America, yes, because
So-
it's actually SCA.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
according to them, the golden ratio is a 1 to 18.
Like
Ratio.
1 to 1, 8.
Yes.
18, guys.
Yeah.
That is very watery. So I'm guessing fairly dark roast.
Probably.
I would guess more or less.
Yeah.
So that would balance out.
and yeah, so and for me, all the brewing methods, they just give it to us and say go between 1 to 16 or 1 to 18. That's like the range they go. They don't go lower or. And I don't understand why it's as if they stuck to it and they just kept it and say, okay, this works for us and that's gonna.
Yeah, now, someone like me with my palate, I get really frustrated with this.
Yeah.
The reason is, I like very strong, and when I say strong, I mean intense.
Yeah.
I like intense things that are very sour or very acidic. So I love balsamic vinegar. I love apple cider vinegar. I love lemon juice. I love normal vinegar. So for me, I walk into a shop and I go, hey man, I see you got a V60. Will you pour me one? And they go, yeah, well, we've got 3 coffees to choose from. We've got a Guatemala, we've got an Ethiopia, and we've got a Kenya. And I'm like, ooh, let's go for the Kenya, or let's go for the Ethiopian.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, let's see if we can get something from this Guatemala, depending on the ratio, the roast profile.
Yes.
I'd be like, so how are you going to make it for me? And every single barista responds with, oh no, we go 1 to 16 ratio.
All of them.
And I'm going, but that's so watery. Like,
Yeah, and-
I want to taste my coffee.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's as if it's a thing that's
default.
Yeah, it gets stuck in their head, and they don't want to try something else because I think the most important part is they don't really know. They don't know. They haven't tasted it before. They don't experiment. Yeah.
Now,
so
also to say is we really respect a brewer or barista that when they tell us, for example, let's say it's a Kerichho variety from the Yirgacheffe region in Ethiopia, and
by
they
all
said,
means.
listen,
Yeah.
I recommend this coffee at a 1 to 16 ratio because we want to highlight this element of sweetness, this element of acidity, and this element of bitterness.
And this element of intensity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they explain to me why. By all means. Then immediately I'm like, okay, cool, you know what? 1 to 16 normally is a bit watery for what I would like, but this is very interesting because this obviously means that this guy has tasted the coffee and believes enough in the recipe that he's using
Yes.
that he's willing to educate me on it, which is
Yes.
amazing because
Yes.
I love when a barista tries to educate me on the coffee that he's busy with.
Yeah.
Of course, he knows his coffee, or he should know his
Yeah.
coffee.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and he knows what to extract and what's the best ratio and to get the best flavor notes and the best balance
From
in
that coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
But
it's-
if your default is 1 to 16 because that's all you know, experiment, man.
Or
Yeah.
if you, for example, believe that every coffee should be served at a very specific, at a 1 to 16 ratio, immediately I kind of want to ask the question, okay, but have you tasted this at another ratio?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
let's say, for example, a coffee that is commonly used in South Africa, right? Let's take a Guatemala Finca El Morito, when we
Yes.
can find it, but
Yes, if it's available.
Yeah.
if it's available. So we literally in our vicinity of 5 kilometers, which would be around about 3 miles, I think. If
Yeah,
you're listening,
2.8 to 3 miles, yeah.
yeah.
I think.
We have 3 shops that we are intimately familiar with who serve Guatemala Finca El Morito. And neither one of those shops has a similar roast profile or
At
similar
all.
taste profile. The one tastes like chocolate and nuts. The other one has beautiful elements of guava and this kind of powdered sweet element. So
Yes.
a 1 to 16 on either of those coffees is not going to taste the same.
It's
Yeah.
not going to. It's impossible for it to taste the same. Now, on that note, I know there's guys out there that like to play with refractometers.
Refractometers.
Refractometers. I'm pronouncing that correctly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Tongue twister again. Now, once you start playing with that, I know certain guys go, no, but you need to extract this percentage of TDS into the coffee otherwise. And I'm going, okay, I hear where you're coming from, but at that TDS, the coffee tastes watery, numb, blunt. I'm not tasting what I want to taste.
Yeah. You're not getting the what you can get out of the coffee that
Yes.
that you have in front
At the end of the day, science is important, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I have to put it in my mouth. I need to enjoy this.
And using a refractometer or going into this space where we have, for example, a conversation with somebody who wants to know
Yes.
the science behind
Yeah.
what's happening in the cup, it is absolutely amazing to be able to give someone that specific, that kind of information.
Yeah. No.
But if we take into account, for example, when we first met, you drank, Mr. Stefan, you were much more in love with milk than you are today.
Yeah, I don't drink
as in,
milk.
like, you don't
Like,
drink
I don't
milk anymore.
We don't even have milk in our house
Anymore.
Anymore.
Because
And-
both himself and his wife
Yeah.
are now dairy intolerant, or they found out that they're
Yeah.
dairy
Yes.
intolerant.
Definitely.
But if you take that, for example, into account, when we initially met, we did not enjoy the same cup of coffee.
No, we didn't.
You had a very specific drink that you enjoyed.
Yeah.
I, for example, didn't even touch milk at the time. I was only on V60s and KMXs,
Yeah, yeah.
and the ratios of the coffees that I pulled them at were not nearly
Yeah.
necessarily to your palate. And I mean, how many people do we make coffee for a day?
Hmm.
That none of them enjoy the same thing in a cup of coffee.
And that's the amazing thing about this. So I think that's where we all have different palates, we all have different tastes, we like different styles of coffee and different intensities, if I can say like
Yes.
that. And
That's a good word. Intensity is the
so,
right word.
So for me, the question that I'm going to put out there is why stick to one ratio? According to research that I've taken, everybody, wherever I went on sites, the ratios are 1 to 16 or 1 to 18 on an alternative brewing, and I'm like, okay, but not everybody likes it like that.
Yes.
So why do you put it as, except if you have one certain coffee that only works on that?
Now,
Then-
okay, to be fair, if you are an everyday coffee drinker
Yeah.
and all you know is percolator coffee, then 1 to 16 is what you are is going to be what you know.
What you used to, yeah.
Now, if that's what you like, by all means, I would challenge you, experiment, and then go and see, try something else and go, oh, wow,
Yeah.
this coffee that I always thought was nice on 1 to 16,
Yeah.
because that's what is suggested to me, I tried at a 1:12 ratio
Yeah.
because my wife had a scale for the kitchen, and I took that just to kind of experiment and
Yeah.
try.
Yeah.
And this coffee is 500 times better at a 1:12 than it is at a 1:16.
Yeah.
Then have that coffee at a 1:12.
Yeah.
But you have your other coffee, go back to 1:16. Like
Yeah.
your mouth, your pleasure. Who are we to tell you what you should like or dislike?
Yeah,
But at
definitely.
least experiment.
Yeah, and the thing is, when we go now to to espressos and the ristrettos and lungos,
Yes.
there's also not a lot of different types of ratios. There's one certain ratio that they standardized, and
1:2.
1:2 for espresso, 1:3 for a lungo, and
And
if-
ristretto somewhere at a 1:1.
yeah, but I actually found a nice site that I can't remember the site, but this guy actually goes into a bit more like he goes
Oh,
into
wow.
ristretto to 1 to 1 to 1 to
1.5.
1.9 basically. So
Oh, he
said
actually goes up to 1.9 as well?
If you look at, it says 1.1 to 1.2, so then that's where espresso starts.
Right.
1 to
And I would
2.
agree with that.
Yeah, so, and when I saw this, I remember that in your training you go from ristretto is from 1 to 1 to 1 to 1.9.
9.
Yeah.
Just before the 2.
Yes. So, and if you go to a place, and I've realized that I've tasted a lot of espressos at different coffee shops.
Uh-huh.
If they have a ratio, it's always 1 to 2.
Well, they say it's 1:2, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what they said it is, and
Well, that is the recommended ratio
Yeah.
for their coffee.
Yeah. Very theoretical.
Not for that coffee. They just say that's 1.2, and then you taste it, and then it's you can taste that the coffee is
It's watery and
it's-
bitter.
Yeah, or it's under extracted, or
Or it's very ristretto-like.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it depends on the coffee and the flavors that you get out of the coffee. Like you guys, if you change a blend, you change your ratio.
Oh, for sure, because the coffee
you-
don't taste the same.
And that's the thing. If for me, it's a thing is I think the people need to understand that there's way more to a ratio and different coffees that you get. You have to look at your different ratios. You can't just go to one certain ratio. And I know I sound frustrated because when I research and what I know and what I've researched, I couldn't get what the knowledge I have.
You were looking for, yeah.
I couldn't get it because there's only one certain way of doing stuff.
Now, also to say, I for example, especially because I kind of learned how to make coffee in the gutters, right?
Yes.
they're-
From the ghetto, man.
Yes,
The
they're,
Bosveld coffee.
if I have to take the Bosveld coffee way, if I have to take into account how much information there is now with regards to specialty coffee and alternative brewing and ratios and so on, it's
Yes.
already more than when I initially started getting off Nescafe.
Yes.
Right? So I appreciate the fact that they kind of give a standardized place to start.
Yeah.
It's like this podcast, for example. This is not the full conversation. There
Oh,
is
no.
so much more, and we
Yeah.
could keep you busy for
We could
hours.
sit you
Yeah.
for a week
But-
and never say the same thing
But
twice.
yes, so I appreciate the fact that there's actually a place to start, and especially
Yes.
if you are, getting into alternative brewing, or you just bought that espresso machine that you're so proud of for your house, or obviously if you're a coffee professional. And 1 to 2, for example, on an espresso is a good place to start. It's not
Yes.
a horrible thing, but play around a little bit because there's so much more to the cup and so much more to discover, especially in alternative brewing as well. I mean, I got to you and I was like, no man, it has to be a 1 to 16 ratio. So I had the same perspective because
Yeah.
where did I learn it? And now, for example, you go to just on Perfect Daily Grind, or you go to James Hoffman, or you go to many other stages. You can even, for example, there's a magazine that was posted in South Africa. I think it was a 2015 edition of the coffee magazine, the winter one.
Yes.
That they actually had the world champion Tetsukasia's recipe inside for B60, and I was so excited to try this recipe. Only problem was I did not have a scale, so I kind of eyeballed this thing, and I actually wondered, listen, how did he get so fine? Like, how he must have had an amazing science teacher who told him if the water is this thick while it's flowing, it's getting to that place, and so and obviously I'm going to a completely different space now.
Hey, but this is important because you were eyeballing it like we just did with this coffee.
Yes.
Like the coffee we're having right now. We eyeballed it to a point where we go, ooh, I find point A interesting. Okay,
Yes.
let's make it again. We can't.
And now on this is very good. So, for example, one of the things that we say that we want to do, and that is actually in our hearts, is going to different coffee shops, going to different baristas, having a conversation with them, seeing, okay, what do they know, right? Because also, we learn from them every day.
Every day.
And a very good example just of this conversation is a shop that we were at this week.
Yes.
With a barista whose name is Ruth. Amazing
Amazing
personality.
barista,
I mean,
yes.
what an amazing time spending with them. And she made me a shot, not a horrible espresso, right? I actually enjoyed it. But I saw the way that she dosed in her portafilter. I saw the way that she ran the shot, and I also timed it, obviously, like I do, Mr. Pedantic. And I actually quite enjoyed the shot. Could it have been better? Yeah. And it was a darker roast coffee than I would normally enjoy, but she put in so much effort, and I so appreciated watching her. And when I asked her, listen, would you be able to make me that shot again? And immediately you could see the disappointment in her eyes because she said no, because I really don't know what happened.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? And so that's where scale comes in. That's where the ratio that we use, because what does that create? It creates consistency. It doesn't create perfection.
Yeah.
It creates consistency.
There you go.
Exactly.
And that's I think that's the main thing for ratios is you have to have a scale if you want to keep going back to the certain ratios that you like and maybe experiment, because it's easy to just pour and just eyeballing it and tasting it, but you're never going to get that again.
Yes,
and that's where the scale comes in, and just to help you to experiment more and experience what you like and enjoy.
So on the dislike side, imagine making a cup of coffee for a friend. And you make a cup of coffee, you give it to him on your exact ratio that you really appreciate.
Yeah.
He takes a sip and goes, I don't like this. Now, great. You spend 2 or 3 seconds with your friend and you find out, oh, he actually likes something that you dislike.
Yeah.
But because you experimented on a scale, you, like 3 weeks ago, pulled a shot that tasted very similar to what he just explained he would like.
Yeah.
Now, just because you dislike it doesn't mean everybody else is going to.
Yeah.
Now, just because you knew what you did, you could actually run that shot that you disliked, give it to your friend, and blow his mind.
Yeah.
Consistency doesn't just mean it's great for you. Consistency means it's consistent for everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
And that's the nice thing about ratios and why we have to experiment with it and get to a place where you don't just follow the standard of that's out there and says, listen, this is what you do and that's it. Go and experiment. Go and try different ratios. If you like a more intense coffee, go to a stronger ratio, like a 1:10 or 1:12. If you like more water, go to a 1:20. But
go 1:30 for all I care. If you like drinking very weak tea, that should help.
Yeah, then the tea drinkers will enjoy that coffee.
but now on that note, it made me just think of something. So you only have available in your small little town in the middle of nowhere a roastery that only roasts dark roast. Right or wrong? No, just different. You go there, you support him day in, day out, but you feel the need to want to add milk and at least 3, maybe 4 spoons of sugar just to get the coffee down. You know that you would prefer a coffee that's, with no sugar.
Yes.
And you go, okay, cool, let's now experiment with this coffee. Let's pull this shot at a 1:16, 1:18, 1:20, 1:25, and 1:30. You'll notice that the darker roast coffees do level out in bitterness. It kind of almost balances out if you add more water and very little time.
Yes, especially if you reduce time, right? Because you're not getting into the coffee as much to get those bitter elements out of it.
Exactly. Now you can enjoy your local roaster. I mean, let's say you like lighter roast and you only get to drive to the city once a month and you want to buy your light roast and you run out. Go and support the local guy. just find a ratio that you enjoy his coffee on.
Yeah. And I think he will also learn when you go and you experiment, and he might think, okay, maybe I must try and
Maybe he should start experimenting.
maybe try a different roasting profile.
That's it.
And maybe from there on he learns that he can get
Multiple flavors.
multiple different roasts and different flavors and more variety for the people in a small town.
Yes.
You know, you might actually be surprised by how open people are to positive feedback.
Yeah.
Now,
Definitely.
I like the word.
the
Positive.
operative term there being positive feedback. When you tell them, listen, I love coming to your shop, especially because, in my experience in the coffee world has been that you connect to the person more than you connect to the coffee.
That's
Yes.
it.
I will come back to see a really enthusiastic person who doesn't necessarily know as much about coffee or is not able to serve me the greatest cup, but they're willing to improve every time, or they're willing to spend that time with me, rather than going to the most niche, most upmarket coffee shop, but I have no experience of communication. So
There's no connection.
yeah,
with
Yes.
people.
the
people
ratio of
connection.
flavor to experience is not there, since we're on the topic of ratios, right?
Right.
So, but you might actually be surprised how people are willing to take your feedback and then make that change,
Yeah.
especially if they're the kind of people that we obviously appreciate in the coffee world, who want to get you to the cup that you enjoy.
Yes.
Amen, brother. Because you're going to put that coffee in your mouth and you actually want to feel like you got some value for the money that you paid for the packet.
Definitely.
I don't want to buy a packet of coffee, put it on the cabinet and go, I wish I could have gotten some value from that packet, but now I'm not going to drink that packet ever because at the 1:16 default ratio, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
That would be disappointing. And I mean, the local roaster who's still learning how to roast better coffee needs that feedback so that he can become better as well.
Yeah.
If you never give him feedback, you just stay away, leaving the packet there on the cabinet or giving it to someone that you think might enjoy it or dunking it in the trash. Now no one is winning.
Yeah, no, that's true. And that's why we want to learn from each other.
Yeah,
Experience,
definitely.
learn, like I said, positive feedback, and at the end of the day, we're gonna lift the standard of coffee, lift the quality of coffee.
Yeah.
Just by
More value.
Yeah, just by giving positive feedback, connecting with your roaster, with your barista, and just exchanging some wisdom around or knowledge around coffee.
That's it.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? There are, and I love people who, for example, since we're on the topic, I love people who on the package of the coffee actually make a recommendation. So they tell you, listen, this coffee we recommend only, for example, in an AeroPress or in a French press, because it has very specific elements that only through a submersion method really come out, and we recommend this ratio. Let's say, for example, you try it and you can understand why they did it, right?
Yeah.
But then you go and you play with it. You say, nah, you know what? I don't want to do 1 to 14. I want to highlight this acidity a little bit more. I'm going to go 1 to 12 or 1 to 10. Or even if you, for example, like a friend of ours goes 1 to 5 on every single coffee in the AeroPress, and they highlight that specific thing,
Ausfeld.
and you find something that you really enjoy or that you think is really worthy of sharing with someone, go back to that place and listen, man, I tried your coffee on this ratio, I liked it, but I tried this and I'd highlighted this for me. Why? Because that actually shows that you're willing to put in the time to play with the masterpiece that somebody was willing to create and find your beauty in that coffee. And they actually learn something out of it, because let's be honest, even in our coffee, let's say just this last year, we've had probably 25 to 27 different coffees in the shop, like including just our house blend, which has changed so much.
So many times.
And our ratio is not necessarily perfect. If you know how many shots and ratios we try every time we change the coffee in the shop,
Oh my
because we know
goodness.
we like something, but our largest client base does not necessarily enjoy what we like. So we play with those ratios, we play with the different flavors, we play with getting our clients to the happiness in that cup.
And that is so important.
It is.
So they walk away feeling they got value. You walk away feeling you did a good job. And all of a sudden a new relationship has started where they're coming back every day or every second day or even once a week, spending 5 to 10 minutes having a cup of coffee because you were willing to put in that extra bit of work to make sure that the client got something they deserved.
Yeah, definitely. And
Now, on this topic, I want to run into something. We'll obviously in the future do a more specified podcast episode where we really dive into the different types of ratios.
Yeah.
But I love this article that you found, and I actually want to quote him because I believe very, very similar to, and I'm not just saying this because I agree, but I feel that it should be put out there. And if you're listening to this podcast and it's your very first podcast, please go and listen to the rest. We're not always this pedantic and with so much information. We don't want you to feel that we're pressuring this down on you, but I want you to go and try and experience this.
Yeah.
If you have an espresso machine available and you have a scale available, I want you to take your espresso machine, calibrate it in to the espresso shot that you prefer to drink.
Yes.
Put on the scale, run the shot, and actually see what comes out. Now, let's say for argument's sake, you get a 18 grams in, 42 mils out, and you got it in 28 seconds.
So 1 to 2.3 ratio.
Yeah, so a 1 to 2.3 ratio, and you're like, okay, fantastic. Thank you, Christian, there for being the quick calculator. I just have to say that because this boy's mind is so incredible.
I have to take out my phone before I can.
I was going to be like 42. That was a 1, 2, 2 point. Was it a 2, 3, or a 4?
Okay, my fingers are not as fast as his brain, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. and so run the shot and taste it, and then go, okay, cool. Let's experiment the following. Take the 18 grams, run it at 18 milliliters, which is a 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
So just to explain that a bit, if you take coffee and you take water, you want the ratio between those two to be something specific. So if it's 18 grams and you want to go on a 1-to-1 ratio, then it means you want 18 mils of water going through the 18 grams.
Yeah.
If you want a 1-to-2 ratio, then for every particle of water, for every particle of coffee, you want 2 particles of water, 1 to 2. So 18 grams in would be 36 milliliters out.
Yeah.
And taste the difference between the two. Then you can become even more pedantic. Of course, you can go and try the 1-to-3 ratio. 18 grams in, I think 63 mils out, if I remember correctly, Mr. Calculator.
No, I missed that ratio.
1-to-3 ratio.
So it's 54.
54. Oh yeah, 1-to-3.5 would be a 63.
Yes.
That's the one I always go for. And taste those 3 ones. Then you can become slightly more pedantic and you can go, okay, what does a 1-to-2 taste like versus what does a 1-to-2.1 taste like versus what does a 2.2 taste like? What does a 1-to-2.3 taste like? Try all of those different shots and I promise you it is going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
Now, if you listen to this and you're thinking, my goodness, that's a lot of coffee, just have some water to stand by.
Yes.
Trust me, we know. We've tasted 46 espressos in a row.
Yeah.
We know the blood pressure goes up a little bit as the excitement does as
Yes.
well. So just take a sip of water. Just not
Just flush
medical
your-
advice, just out of experience.
Yeah,
just
glass
flush-
of water for every
flush
cup of
your
coffee.
liver.
And
Yeah.
make sure that the bathroom
Your
is
liver and
closed.
your kidneys.
You're gonna run.
Now, just for those of you wondering why we say this, because I'm sure you guys are going, oh my word, these guys are going to die. Our record is just below 100 espressos in one day. So it is possible. Now, Tian, Mr. Tian here, Mr. Pedantic, got a little shaky from around 40 to 60 espressos. So we made him drink a liter of water, we went for a walk, we came back and we restarted all over again. So it is possible you won't die. Just drink a lot of water.
You're going to be detoxified.
Yeah, your body's gonna be very clean.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's a good thing.
Yeah, so that would be the challenge from us to you.
Yes.
Now, have we figured this out? No. But I am going to
Definitely
put
not.
my foot down and I'm going to say and agree with this article that we found, which we'll post this article on our Medium post, or on the Medium. You can find that on our website if you guys want to go check that out. I'm going to agree and put my foot down and say 1-to-1 up to a 1-to-1.9 ratio would be a ristretto. A 1-to-2 ratio going up to a 1-to-2.9 ratio would be an espresso.
Yeah.
And going from a 1-to-3 up to a 1-to-3.9 would be a lungo. And of course the times are going to change. You can play with your own time, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
You know, to play with flavor.
Yeah.
But because there is no standard and no information available out there on the internet, I want to put my foot down, and I'm sure you guys would agree with me.
Yeah.
Put your foot down and say, this is what we are going to go with, then at least we can quote something.
Yes.
Are we right about this? No. But at least I can work to something.
Yes.
This is actually
Lamazocco
on the
but
Lamazocco
Australian
website.
Lamazocco.
So Lamazocco Australia, you guys are amazing.
Yeah.
Brew ratios around the world, they say 1:1, 1:2, and 1:3 is a good standard.
Yes.
And I say let's go with that,
Yeah.
because at least now we've got consistency in the world, even if it's just between South Africa and Australia.
Yes.
Well.
That was a good place to start. That's
Yeah.
kind of
Yes.
how does an agreement come to terms? It starts with two people, right? It starts
Yes.
with
Agree.
just two parties.
Yeah.
So the party is here and the party is in Australia. If you want to join it. Obviously, try those ratios. Tell us what you think.
So let's
Yeah.
see if we can get Lamazocco Australia on this podcast soon, and let's have a fun discussion. So guys,
Around-
we're going to tag you on this. Please, if you're listening to this, please reach out. We would love to get you guys on here, and let's discuss this, and let's see how we can put something together that
Yeah.
we could send to James Hoffman, and we can send to Matt Pergan, we can send to Sasa Sestic, and we can get their approval on this,
Yeah.
just to kind of have a standard in the world that is consistent.
Yes.
I hate it hanging in the air, always wondering what I'm drinking.
That's true, and I think when we discuss this and we have more parties agreeing on a standard that we have, we're gonna up the quality, we're gonna up the standard of coffee, and then more people can know what ratios is and where they can start, not just having one specific ratio and keeping it to that, and that's it. So,
Yes.
and I think it will be nice to have Lamazocco on the podcast to discuss it. I think it will be a great discussion.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
Now, that was answering obviously the first question,
Yeah.
Stefan, like why is this important? Because there need to be some
Yeah.
type of standards that
Yeah,
everybody can agree on, that we can work from as a basis, as Christian said. At least there's a place that we can start from.
Yes.
Just do make sure that the place you start from is actually what you say it is, and not guessing that it's that.
Yeah, don't do with your coffee like we did with ours for today.
Yes.
Have a measurable thing that is actually that you can consistently try.
Yes.
That's it. 28 seconds doesn't mean it's a 1-to-2 ratio.
No.
Yes.
That just means it's a consistent 28 seconds.
Yeah, that's
It
all
could be-
consistency there
It
is.
could be 116 mils out in 28 seconds, or it could be 15 mils out in 28 seconds, depending on your grind and tap.
Yeah, so at least your time's consistent.
Yeah, at least there's one thing consistent.
So Christian, on the second question, how can this information make our coffee better?
Well, I think
Mr.
especially
Pedantic.
yes.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Pedantic.
as the person of this group known to be able to pull a ratio consistently, which I have to say is only on a large percentage, it's not perfect, but I think the fact that we create consistency already makes it better, and the fact that we know what we did. So we always say, if you enjoy something, do you at least know what you did? Or if you don't enjoy something, do you at least know what you did?
Yeah.
That's
because if you know what you did, you know how to get it again.
Yeah.
And if
Exactly.
you don't like it, you know how to stay away from it.
Yes.
So I think especially because first of all it connects you with your coffee, you know what's going on, and the more you play with it and experiment with it and find how much there is to discover in just one cup by changing a ratio, we have so much more appreciation for what a farmer does,
Yeah.
what a producer does, what the roaster does to
Yes.
create such complexity that it actually does taste different when you just go a 0.1 up on a ratio, or go from a 2 to a 3 to a 4 to a 15, depending on obviously the method that you use.
That's
Yeah.
it. Like, I don't think there's a more accurate answer to that question
definitely.
to ask any person in the world. Like, that tells me exactly why I would want to know this information,
Yeah.
and how it could affect my brewing at home.
Yeah.
Now, Stefan, how would you take this information, or how did you? Because when you
Yeah.
came to us, you didn't know about scales, you didn't know about
Uh,
times. You were like, I've got a little Brevel at home, and I make coffee that I enjoy,
Yeah.
even though it never tastes the same. How did you apply this information to actually make your coffee at home better?
Well, learning about the ratios helped me to first purchase a scale.
Exactly.
So
it's
that,
not guessing, it's buying
And-
the instruments to
Yeah.
be able to test it.
Yeah, and you
Yes.
don't have to go to buy the most expensive one out there. There's nice, decent priced scales out there that you can use for the start.
Yeah,
And-
kitchen scale is good.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
yeah, and so experimenting with the coffees that I had helped me to taste when I enjoy it at a certain ratio. So playing with the ratios, knowing what ratios is, and playing with the time made me discover the espressos that I enjoy in the morning. Making an espresso for the flat white for my wife, or not flat white. She actually started drinking flat whites, by the way.
Double ristretto or
Yeah, double ristretto.
okay.
So she enjoys it a bit more, but you have to have the right coffee.
If it's not the right coffee, it's not going to taste the same.
So,
yes.
but making for my wife because she doesn't drink a lot of coffee, but when she wants it, she wants a nice cup of coffee.
Yes.
So having that, knowing what to do, and knowing what ratios, and it made my wife happy, so it made me happy.
Bro,
So-
like happy wife,
Happy life.
happy
There we go.
life.
So, but
like,
yeah.
Now, if you are a guy and you're listening to this, and your wife
Uh.
enjoys a great cup of coffee, learn from Mr. Stefan on exactly how to keep the wife happy.
Yeah, so, and
use a damn scale.
if she tastes it and she says this is a great cup of coffee, then you know
That's what I did.
1 to 2.3 ratio on so many, let's say 20 seconds or whatever the ratio was for the day for that specific coffee. Then you know it. You write it down.
Yes.
Because then you know for this coffee that ratio, and you have a happy wife.
She's gonna love it. And I think
So-
that's a good place to
Yeah,
end
so-
this episode.
definitely.
Yeah. So listen, if you do have an interesting coffee and you find something extremely interesting with regards to ratios, decide you want to run a 1 to 1.3 ratio, but you want to run it 27 seconds, and you find something very interesting from your cup, let us know.
Yes, please. Would love to taste that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
That would be amazing for us to taste it if it is available in our local area. We would
Yeah.
definitely go and buy that, and we will definitely enjoy that cup of coffee.
Definitely, that's so looking forward to it. So send us some good, interesting coffees.
Yes.
yeah, so guys, when you take this information, may it actually help you when you go to your coffee shop, when you brew your coffee at home, and then when you make that cup of coffee, may you find your happy place in every single cup.
Yes. Chat to you guys on the next episode.
Cheers, guys.